Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Now last time we focused on the second part of the ATG squat method. We went more into the calf muscles and especially improving that dorsiflexion and strengthening and lengthening the calves. In this video, we're going to focus on the quad muscles today and especially trying to get that heel to touch your bottom. Now a good way to test out that quad flexibility is to see how close your bottom gets to your heels when you sit down in that Japanese seated position. So you bring your knees down towards the ground, you flatten the feet, and then you try and see how low your bottom comes down towards the heels. Now, if you're tight, you're gonna find that discomfort in the knees. So when you sit that bottom down towards the heels, just make sure that you are using your hands as a support. There are two parts to this movement depending on which part of the body you are tight in. So if it's the ankles, what you may find is the ankle joint will rise up as you come down towards your heels with your bottom. If you're tight in the quad, you'll find that the bottom will rise up from the heels, and this will probably be your maximum position. Plus, you'll feel a bit of discomfort in the knees as well. Okay, so before we get into the quad stretch, I'm going to show you a really good exercise that will help you to open up the muscles around your ankle joint to help us go into that plantar flexion position. So we want our toes to be fully pointed as we sit down. That way, then we know that the ankles are not a limitation when it comes to the squat. Alright guys, so for this exercise, we're going to use a soft yoga block to help us stretch out the muscles around the ankles and that allow us to go into plantar flexion of the ankles. So you want to place your block behind you, and then we're going to position ourselves so then the ankles are resting on top of the block. If you find it difficult to place both of your ankles on one block, feel free to use another block. Next, we're going to decide the depth of the stretch. So if you walk your feet forward towards the front edge of the block and then you sit yourself down on your heels, that's going to intensify the stretch around the ankles and the tibs. And then if that's too intense, we can also slide the feet a little higher up, and this will just reduce the intensity. So that's method number one of increasing and reducing the intensity. The second method is you place your hands next to your knees and you lean forward. This will also reduce the intensity as well. The first thing we're going to do is move our hands to the side of the knees, and we're just going to open up the space in our ankles to help us go deeper into the stretch. So you're just rocking your hips side to side gently, and we're going to try and aim for anything between 15 to 20 reps in total. Good, once we've done that, we're going to try and sit upright onto our heels. Now again, if this is too intense, feel free to lean forward a bit more into the hands. We're going to aim for about a minute holding this position, and then once you've done that, we're going to perform a contraction. So very lightly, you're going to push the toes into the block. As you do that, it's going to intensify the contraction around the ankles and the tibs. You hold that for 5 seconds, relax contraction, take a deep breath in, and then as you exhale, see if you can sit a little deeper into the heels by leaning back. If it's way too intense, just stay exactly where you are. We're going to perform this contraction 3 times. So during the contractions and relaxations, if you find that the ankles are cramping or you find it's too intense, just ease off a tiny bit, or between each contraction, stand up and shake the legs off. Now for most people that sit on a chair for most of their day, what you'll find is the limited range of motion of that flexion in the hip and the knees makes us become really good with this position. So if I stand up, you'll see as I come down towards the box or a seat, my hip goes into partial flexion, and the same with the knees. It's only a 90-degree angle that most of us are using throughout the day, and hence one of the reasons why the quads become tight. Now the looser your quads are, the closer you'll be able to get your heel towards your bottom when you flex the knee, which will transfer over to the ATG squat when you bring your bottom down towards the heels in that deep part of the squat. Alright, so for the quad stretch, we're going to do an exercise called the couch quad stretch. This will probably be the most effective stretch if you've got really tight quads. So to get into position, we're going to first grab ourselves a pad or even a yoga block just to protect the knee when we're going into position. So I'm going to place that right up against the wall. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to use a plyometric box to act as the wall. So I'm going to place one of my legs right up against the wall. Your goal is to try and see how close you can get your knee up against the wall. From here, we're going to go upright, and we're going to try and get our front leg into a 90-degree angle. Now, if this is excruciatingly uncomfortable for the quad, feel free to either lean forward a bit more into the front leg. This will take some of the stretch out of the quad, or you can slide your back knee forward a bit more, and then this will make it a lot more comfortable to go upright. Secondly, if you find it uncomfortable around the ankles, feel free to also curl the toes under against the wall. Now, we can also make this exercise more intense for those of you that are a bit more flexible in the quad by pushing the bottom towards the wall. The closer you get the bottom towards the wall, the stronger you're going to feel that in the quad. Secondly, we can also tuck our tail, so a posterior pelvic tilt, and that will also increase the intensity in the quad. If you're finding it difficult to balance, we can always use a parallel or even a foam roller to support our arm as we go upright into position. So the first thing we want to do is hold the stretch for anything between a minute to 90 seconds. And then we're going to add a few PNF contractions to help us get deeper into the quad. So the first contraction, we're going to push this back foot against the wall. Hold that for 5 seconds. Take a breath in. And then as you exhale, see if you can push your bottom back towards the wall a bit more. This will intensify the stretch in the quad. The second contraction is we push this back knee down into the ground, and then we create the sensation of dragging the leg forward through the ground. So again, you push the back knee down into the ground and you create the sensation of pulling the leg forward through the ground. The third contraction is a posterior pelvic tilt. So we're bringing that tail under, and this is going to really intensify the stretch in the quad. And then as a bonus contraction, we're going to do all the previous 3 contractions together in one go. So you push your back foot against the wall, you press the back knee down into the ground and you drag it forward, and then you also go into a posterior pelvic tilt. So again, you're going to hold these contractions for 5 seconds, relax, take a deep breath in, and if it feels comfortable, see if you can push the hips back towards the wall a bit more. If it's really intense wherever you are, just hold the stretch in that position. So to come out of the stretch, we lean forward into the front leg, place the hands down on the ground, and then try and slide your knee off the wall. Stand up, shake the leg off, and do the same stretch on the opposite leg. Firstly, we can try and prolong the stretch for a longer period of time, so anything between 2 to 5 minutes once you've completed your contractions, and that will help you to build that flexibility in that quad a lot quicker. Secondly, you want to figure out which side is a tighter quad, and then when you're doing this exercise, always start off with the tighter side first. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. Try these exercises out and let me know how they go for you in the comment section. Done.